will happen. But we can't keep having folks on the Hill and folks in the White House pressure small businesses to export more and chip away at the trade deficit and harvest their intellectual capital until we have a little bit better harmonization, knowing that the assets they're going to be exporting will be protected. Because a lot of small companies are just too afraid to go global. They're too afraid their stuff will get stolen. That's just a practical fear. And it's one that's got to be dealt with. Understanding whatever these fears, uncertainties, and doubts are inside government, inside university leaders. I've spent time with folks from NIH, from DARPA, from inside universities. They want to see their products and services, the research, turn into products and services. They really do. They're good people. But they don't know how to do it. The people in this room know how to do it. We need to put those systems in place. We need more communication and collaboration between small business leaders and these sources of innovation. Let me skip to just a couple of other thoughts, and whenever I get the signal from Giuseppe, I will step down. We do have an ecosystem that drives innovation. I've met with government leaders from at least 24 countries and visited countries, and everyone always asks, how do we build an ecosystem in our country that harvests innovation in the way that the US does? And the US still has plenty of room for improvement. But there's certain things that are a bit unique, not that they can't be replicated, but an open geography and frontier spirit, this massive amount of dollars that we spend at NIH and federal labs and DARPAs, and as Rohit mentioned, SBIRs. I mean, these systems need to be replicated. These best practices need to be exported. As large as our trade deficit has become, we are still the #1 exporter of entrepreneurial best practices and entrepreneurial education. And that's something I remain very proud of, and we are happy to export it. I've talked about incremental innovation, some of the challenges that we have. We're all aware of the STEM crisis. Take a minute, if you haven't seen the latest version of Shift Happens on YouTube. How many people have watched that video? Not enough. 2 people. Shift Happens, there's a lot of focus, so we discussed today about China. Watch Shift Happens. Look at the number of Chinese children learning English relative to the number of American children learning Mandarin or Cantonese. It's sad. It's embarrassing. Look at the number of children in China and emerging economies studying science, technology, engineering, and mathematics compared to the data that we have here in the US. We've got to do better in that regard. We talked about government resources. Here's a little government resource on the third to last bullet that deserves better attention. I gave a speech in London at a global entrepreneurship conference of companies who had come to Europe to do business in Europe, US business leaders, 300 of them. I asked them if anyone knew what the acronym the USFCS stood for. Not a single one knew. This was my first job in Washington at the US Foreign and Commercial Service. I was a GS5, big man on campus, very big executive at the USFCS. But as a GS5, it was still my first job in Washington. And the USFCS sits inside US embassies around the world, the US Foreign and Commercial Service, waiting for small business owners or large business owners, but they really like dealing with the smaller companies, waiting for them to call, to be a resource to them, to facilitate global trade. We've got a lot of people talking about our need to chip away at the trade deficit. I never hear USFCS mentioned. So this is my shameless plug for that agency. As far as innovation and SMEs, again, I could talk for hours about this. The biggest problem, coming back to a key principle in the book, is this issue of fire hoses versus irrigation systems. You can't irrigate a field of crops with a fire hose. And most small business owners and entrepreneurs view their day as putting out fires. And that's too much water for most knowledge crops. We have also become an impatient, ADD, distracted society. I see it on the roads every day. I see people texting and putting on makeup and smoking a cigarette while going 60 miles an hour on the highway. It really scares me. That's a different book I wrote. Coming back to the core principle here, that's not a way to innovate. We can't live quarter to quarter. We can't spend our days putting out fires. Small business owners and large business leaders need to pull themselves away from the daily, grunt the daily fight and make sure that they're investing in systems that will foster innovation. It's got to be both top down and bottom up. Am I pretty well out of time? Okay. Let me stop there. Again, anybody who would like copies of the slides, I think we're all happy to share. Let's go to panel discussion and Q&A. Thank you.